Hey, thank you so much for joining us online today. You have picked a great time to check out His Table Church. We have this morning a special session on godly marriage. We have with us today Shara and Tracy Gilreath. These are licensed marriage counselors. They've been in the business for 13 years. They have seen a lot. On top of that, they've been married 31 years. So they have a wealth of knowledge to share with us. Feel free to like, comment. Make sure you leave any comments. Send us a message if you have any questions for us. We'd love to see you in person sometime. You can join us in worship at the Salisbury YMCA every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. May this be a blessing to you and your husband or wife and your family. God bless you. Surround yourself with a body of believers like this. You can know this, you know that. Surround yourself with people that are children of God that will fight for you.
That's right.
Come on, somebody.
That's right.
That will fight for your marriage. That will encourage you. Other people that are real and transparent and in the fight too, that can relate to what you're going through and can say there's hope for your marriage. If there's hope for mine, there's hope for yours. So thank you so much for being here today. I believe the fact that you're here today is you are in the fight. Tracy and Sharon, they have some great information. I'm going to kind of turn over to them. I just wanted to throw that out there. Do you guys have an opinion on the 70% thing? Did y'all formulate a very wise answer about why that is? Why 70% are followed by ladies? Before we jump into what you guys have, do you have an answer for that? What do you think?
I have several, I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we individually thought about it and then we talked about it together. I think that this is historical in the sense that we've seen a change and a trend of how women are becoming more vocal, about what they want, what they need. But then at the same time, women have also become more independent. They're working, they're earning their own wages. And I think if you combine this with the fact that we're seeing a trend in our men who are seemingly becoming put down, discredited, told that they are nothing or that we don't need you. I think that sometimes men have a hard time stepping up and addressing, that issue because they're told that. So, unfortunately, I think women who are, because I think you had said that it was mostly women who were making more money, or they were educated, or in career, or something to that effect.
Actually, 70% of the U.S., I think it was like 62% in the U.K. of women who are filing for divorce, and then it actually ticks up higher than that for the more education that a woman has, the percentage gets even higher.
Yeah. So women are starting to, you're seeing this, women are starting to get to the place where I can do this myself. I don't need you. I don't need a man. We're seeing that more and more today, although I think it's just a lie. Part of it, I believe, might be part of the feminist movement that we're seeing, but women also, carry the emotional weight of a marriage and a relationship. I don't mean that the men don't. I think that the women are just more in tune to that relational need in the marriage. And if they are dismissed, or if they're told they're crazy or they're stupid or that's ridiculous, I don't do this, I don't do that, then I think women eventually, especially educated or career-minded women, say, well, okay, well, if you don't care, then I don't care, and I can take care of this and I can take care of myself. So I think that's part of it. You have something else to add?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the pendulum shift, is that there is a balance to that. I think it is encouraging that both men and women, there needs to be a level of independence. There needs to be a level of I'm secure in myself, and I can carry on my life if something were to happen to you. However, the problem is that the pendulum shifted from the 1950s, 1960s. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Pleasantville, but it's like the whole, everything you're doing is for the husband. Honey, I'm home. Oh, here's your dinner, and the pendulum was way over here. And then it shifted into, I don't need you. I can do everything without you. And there is a balance to that to where we need one another, and not you're doing everything for me, I need you, you need me, let's fulfill each other's needs, as opposed to you fulfilling mine and then me just paying the bills. There has to be something that says you're valid or you're valued just like I'm valued. And I think that's where we get into trouble today, is saying I value myself more than I value you. And that's where I think we have gotten into that point of, that's one of the reasons why, whether it's men or women who's filing for divorce, it's because I don't value you enough. I value myself more. And that goes totally against Scripture. Scripture says that I prefer my brother before myself.
I think it's interesting you brought up Pleasantville, kind of just a visual of that, of women traditionally have filled an inside the home role, now in education, and this is, largely good and wonderful that, our young ladies and women are able to be ambitious and achieve and have dreams. And
Absolutely.
we as men should encourage
Celebrate
our
that.
women to achieve the will of God for their life. And, I think women make up nearly 50% of the workforce now. But yet, I think maybe we still hold on to that mentality of, yes, you're still working, but you still need to do what's in the home. And all of a sudden, there's an imbalance there, and a woman doesn't feel appreciated.
Yeah, we're seeing that, quite a bit in terms of couples where the man and the woman both are working outside of the home. There's still the expectation there for a lot of women that they feel like that they're also supposed to bear the weight of everything in the home too. And I think that's where we've got to have a mindset shift where we say, okay, well, if both of us are going to be working outside of the home, then we need to value that and equally share the responsibilities in the home. And I think we alluded to this to one of our previous sessions that we had, where we were saying that there are seasons in life where one of you, if you're both working out of the home, where one of you might be picking up more of the slack than the other one, but I think you should see a well-balanced interchange of that, definitely. And I want to also speak to the fact that I think it's wonderful if a woman stays home and takes care of her kids.
It's a tough job.
It's an extremely tough job. One that me as a woman, I don't know that I could have done. I probably would have lost my mind if I'd stayed home full time. So I think it's a fabulous thing, but I think what we got wrong in the 1950s and before is that the women didn't feel valued for what they were doing in the home. It was just an expectation. Well, this is just what you do. I go and bring home the bacon, the husband says, basically, and woman, you should be grateful for that. Now, where's my meal? When we haven't valued what the woman is doing in raising of the kids in the home when she's at home full time. That's an important job, an extremely important job. And so I think perhaps a lot of women are feeling very undervalued, where the ironic thing is men are too. We're not feeling valued in each other's eyes for what we are bringing to this relationship or to the marriage or to the family. And that's an important thing, is what Tracy was saying earlier. We got to value one another and what each other brings to this marriage or this relationship or to this family.
Are we struggling to communicate that between the husband and wife?
Absolutely.
We feel a certain way or don't feel a certain way, and then, I'll just use my own house. My wife is wonderful, and she's the best, right?
Yes.
I have the best wife. She is so determined and driven and works every day, and but then comes home and also feels this drive to take care of the home. And I see this drive in her, and I'm sure some other husbands, you probably see that. I feel like a mom, a woman, feels this calling to the home. And
I think that's God-given.
Yeah, they take it upon their own shoulders, and before you know it, they're tired and heavy. And as a husband, I have to be more aware and be more knowledgeable and we have to communicate when someone's not feeling valued, or is that the struggle? Is that just communicating how I'm feeling, communicating what
I think it's communicating how you're feeling, but not in a negative way of like, you don't appreciate me. You know, it's not that, but it is having a conversation of like,
is this like, this is how I
this
feel?
is how I feel.
Yeah.
This is what's going on inside of me. I don't want to resent you. The sheriff has said that to me before. I don't want to resent you. I want us to have a relationship, and these are some of those needs that are not getting met.
And I also feel like, too, because we women do bear that, we tend to naturally bear that responsibility at home if we're working outside of the home. I work really hard with the women that I work with on helping them to become more gracious to themselves. It's like, look, women, look what you're doing. I mean, if you just take a look, at everything, why are you expecting yourself to do it all? Because that's impossible. And I feel like that if the husband and the wife can talk about that, and the husband can support that and say, hey, I don't expect you to be able to do it all. But first of all, I have to know that for me, I can't do it all. And nor would anyone expect that of me. But so why do I expect that of myself? And I think that also, for men, it may include other things as well, like the upkeep of the home or the lawn mowing and things of that nature, Guys, we got to learn to be gracious to ourselves first and to one another.
Absolutely.
You mentioned a word there. We're going down a rabbit trail.
That's okay.
We'll chase it.
You mentioned expectations. I feel like that is ramping up in this social media age, where you see people living a certain life.
So unhealthy expectations you're talking about.
Yeah. What's on the gram, and all of a sudden, well, why doesn't my life look like that? Why aren't my kids looking all dapper?
Well, the problem is, I think today we play the comparison game.
Yeah.
We compare our, the old saying, the Joneses. We're trying to keep up with the Joneses, but the problem is, but the problem is it's on social media, so we see it more than just our neighbor. We are seeing the highlight reel. That's kind of like no different than watching you ski yesterday. I was watching the highlight reel.
I didn't post all the falls.
You didn't post all the falls. Right. But that's what we see. Is we see the highlight reel. We see the vacations. We see the new house, or we see the paint job, or the new car, or look what I got, look what she got, that kind of stuff, as opposed to the day-to-day struggles and the things that got you to a point where you can celebrate. One of the things I think about is that this is a hard relationship. This is a difficult relationship. Matter of fact, there's a book called Sacred Marriage. The tagline is, "What if marriage was designed not to make you happy, but to make you holy?" It is a crucible. Crucibles are the things they use in science, where it's like burning, and you're burning out the impurities, and that's what this is about. It is a day-to-day grind. I don't mean to make it it's all negative, because it is positive. But when you can burn out some of the impurities, then you get to see the beauty. You get to see, no different than gold. Gold is like a impure, whenever it's found, they've got to burn out the dross, and they pull it off to make it a more pure gold. This, whenever you are drowning or firing out the impurities, this becomes beautiful. This becomes something we celebrate. Matter of fact, that's what we were going to talk about today, was the celebration of that place where you get to, where you feel the atmosphere is so positive that you could cut it with a knife. No different than you saying it's so negative you can cut it with a knife. It gets so positive that you feel the atmosphere. It's like, I can't wait to get home to my wife. I can't wait to get home to my husband, because I want to see them. I want to be with them because things are good. And it's not always going to be that way. You ride the wave and you try to feel the energy of that, and you try to feel, okay, what feeds that energy. It is a difficult relationship. It's not easy. And if you compare it against Susie Q and Johnny Joe, it's going to look very different because you know what's happening, on Saturday night or Friday night, and you know the conversation that you had, and then you're coming and going, the picture of perfection, that kind of stuff.
And I think too, from our perspective, we get to see the other side of that, so who you are seeing sometimes are coming in to see us, and so they're looking like everything is great, but behind closed doors, things not so much. So that's why, for Tracy and I even, we had to come to a place where we realized this is our relationship, specific to us. Right. And it's going to look like us. It's not going to look like you, and you. And it shouldn't, any more than I should look like you or you should look like me. We're different people. We have different gifts, different callings, different personalities. It should look different. It should look healthy, normal. And then we had to learn what healthy and normal looked like. But we just had to get to a place where okay, well, this is us. And this is what we believe God is calling us to. And that's enough. And it doesn't have to look like you. And I think we really get in trouble when we start setting those expectations. And I think I alluded to that too in one of our other sessions. The expectations are unreachable.
By the way, I want to kind of throw something out there is that a lot of times people and couples come to us and say, we don't have a healthy relationship. And we talk about what does healthy look like. Healthy does not look like everything is perfect. Healthy does not look like there are no struggles or there are no disagreements. Healthy looks like you can navigate those disagreements. You can navigate those conflicts versus, I guess the last session or last time we talked, we were talking about we got in an argument and I was like, man, we teach this stuff. Why can't we get it right? We were able to navigate that, and it wasn't our emotions didn't get high. It was like we recognized when they did, and we pulled it back and said, wait a minute, let's go back to what we teach.
So a healthy marriage, what I'm hearing you say, a healthy marriage is not the absence of struggle.
That's correct. Right.
Disagreements.
Right.
But it's rather being able to navigate those, communicate through those in a healthy way.
Absolutely.
Where both of you are purified, you come through that better, beautiful,
absolutely,
stronger together. You've done it from a place of mutual respect.
That's right.
Absolutely.
We're not tearing each other down. We're not yelling at each other. We're not cursing at each other. We are giving each other place to have the feelings that you have and to be able to say the things that are chewing at you on the inside, and me understanding where she's at or she understanding where I'm at.
And the more conflict that you work through, the more you resolve and bring closure to, and that's the other part about healthy marriage, is that any conflict that we have, we work to bring closure to it. So it's done. We don't talk about it anymore. It's finished. It's complete. And then the more that we do that, the more we learn how to love one another, using some of the things we've talked about already. We learn how to listen to one another. We resolve these conflicts. Not that we don't have them, we resolve them. The less we're going to have.
Let me just speak to that.
We alluded to this last week about the plate, and sorry we didn't bring it, but it's packed up. But it wasn't because the plates were such a huge matter. It's that we didn't have closure on it.
And for those that weren't here, it was a disagreement on the style of
the
plates.
different, right. Yeah.
It became a thorn in the flesh.
That's right. Yeah, it became a thorn. Yeah. So every argument would go back. We didn't continually argue about the plates. It was like every argument led us back to that. It was just like the plates. But when we finally got closure on it, it's no longer an issue. And that's what she's saying, is that when you get closure on things and you're seal it up and go, okay, this isn't an issue anymore. You've heard me. You've understood where I was coming from. I understood where you were coming from. It makes that a non-issue. So you're able to put that behind you. I call it an arsenal closet. A lot of times we have this arsenal closet. It's like whenever the conflict comes up, everything comes flying out of the arsenal closet that you don't have closure on. And it's not necessarily that you say everything, but you feel all those things that are behind the curtain or in the closet.
I'm reminded of that scripture in Corinthians where love keeps no record.
That's right. That's exactly right. Keeps no record of wrong. Yep.
We should make it a point in our life, in our relationships, with our husband, wife, kids, parents, friends, to love them well and not keep a record constantly of all of the things they've done. And certainly, I don't want anybody doing that to me because I probably grew a pretty long list of folks. Before we get into like everything you had planned, I will ask one more question here. Because you mentioned something, you said, I have to give them place. During these disagreements, I have to give them place. I heard you almost kind of say, is that giving them room?
That is giving them room.
Showing them grace?
Yes, safety, room, absolutely. Showing them grace, absolutely.
Sometimes I'm just not ready to talk about it. And sometimes I'm angry and emotional.
Right. Yeah, and that's where I would say that giving them place is that, again, going back to the whole sharks and turtles thing, is I'm ready to deal with it, emotions or not, because all I want is resolution. But I need to give her room to not deal with it emotionally, and that's a learning experience. That's something I learned through counseling and through our experience, is that she is not going to engage with me when emotions are high. Now, let me give you a little caveat to that. And somebody asked me about that the other day. Is that have you ever experienced Shara to when emotions were like the volcano? So I got a cup thrown at me once because, and I'm not calling her out. I'm not throwing her. Don't get me wrong. I'm not throwing her under the bus. But I want you to understand.
It's getting real.
I know, right?
This is what we all came for.
Oh my God. Got dirty stuff. Now, the reason I say that is because there are probably moments in your own relationship where Katie barred the door, you're throwing out the Hail Marys and the cups or whatever it is. But I have learned that if I will give her space, safe place, room to let her emotions come down, let my emotions come down, then whenever I engage with her, I am more likely to get a connection than a continual argument.
How do you determine when that time is right?
I promise you, seriously, I'm ready to deal with it in the moment. It is usually, when I say I'm pointing to her, because I'm going, she usually determines when she's ready for that. And I don't mean, again, I'm not trying to call her out or throw her under the bus, but she does know her emotions better than I do.
Yeah, there are times I'm perfectly okay, let's have this conversation now, okay? But then there are times that it depends on what it is. It's depending on the nature of it. Is this my fault? Are you upset at me? If you're upset at me and you're bringing all that heat, then I'm usually going to tuck tail and run. But then there are times that I'm like, okay, and then I will engage in the conversation. But I want to go back to the whole throwing a cup at his head incident. not to justify myself or anything like that, because it was wrong. I shouldn't have thrown. But why did I throw the cup at his head? Okay, so I had to go back and go, what was going on? And the issue for me was, because I am such a turtle, it builds and it builds and it builds and it builds, and it erupted, and behind the scenes was in my mind going, you're not listening to me. And it was just a fury that welled up inside of me. So when you talk about giving place, to me, giving place is, are you listening to me?
And listening doesn't mean like you're just hearing it. You're understanding where I'm at. It's
not just looking to disagree, but let me just listen to them, understand their point of view, and consider for a second that I might be wrong.
Right. I could articulate exactly what she said in that specific argument. I could articulate it back. I am an audio recorder, and I can articulate it back.
But not the way she meant it.
But not the way she meant it. No, it was not the way. I was not understanding where she was at.
Yes, and that's an extremely frustrating experience for those of you who've gone. I'm sure everybody's gone through that. You're not hearing me. You're not listening to me. All you're doing is bringing back to me your stuff, your point of view, how you see it. You're not hearing me. Would you just listen 1 second? And so that's where that fury, that negative cycle, that energy starts coming. And it's when you stop, can you just stop for a second and just hear what I'm saying? Not just hear it, but understand it. Then maybe I would be open to understanding I'm wrong and you're right. But it's not about right and wrong, guys. And this is the point of contention, the point that we struggle with, I think, the most with the couples. Like, what do you mean it's not about right and wrong? It isn't about being right. It isn't about being wrong. It's about, do you understand me? Because when I feel understood, then I'm open to saying I was wrong. Just hear me. Understand it first before you start judging it and, dismissing it, those sorts of things.
Right.
One last question. I know I just said.
Go ahead.
Let you guys get into what you're.
No, you can.
Let's talk about timing. So, the turtle in the relationship. This was week 1. We talked about this. So, if you missed the shark and the turtle stuff, go back on YouTube and watch week 1. Turtle, shark. She's deciding the time frame when you can. A lot of times
Engage
the
with her.
turtle engage with her when she's ready.
Because he's always ready.
Yeah. Has there ever been a situation where you didn't come back to it, where it's unresolved? What time frame is healthy versus unhealthy? Because sometimes I feel like we can just push things under the rug and never circle back to it, and all of a sudden it's in that arsenal. Should we be communicating? Listen, you come back to me when you're ready. If I don't hear from you in a day or 2 or something, I'm going to come back to you. Should we be communicating timelines like that? Is that healthy, unhealthy?
Yeah, it's very healthy to come back to it. Actually, that was one of our biggest issues, was we swept everything under the rug. If we had a conflict, it was like, pretend like it didn't happen, let's move on. Next day, everything's great. Not really. But there is a timeline, and not necessarily a 5 minutes, 1 hour, next day, the timeline. It is a arbitrary, depending on what the argument was about or depending on the level of emotion. It could be, I can't talk about this today, I need to talk about this tomorrow. But it is a coming back and say, hey, can we talk about X and at least deal with the emotion related to that? And 9 times out of 10, that would have been me, because I am feeling the distance between us, so I want resolution so we can connect again. You want to get to that?
Yeah, this takes practice, guys. This is something that just doesn't come natural. Things that we're talking about isn't, to that sinful man of ours, this isn't natural. That part of us that just wants to, get in there, get her done, and press in no matter what, or to engage when I don't feel like engaging or don't want to talk about it. These things just aren't natural. So you have to work at it. I would have to, Tracy would, early on in our marriage, I would say, again, we swept it under the rug. Then when we started working on it, it was more like, okay, I'll talk to you about it tomorrow, is kind of my thing. And he's like, okay. But if I give him a time frame, if I say, I can't, honestly, with the nature of this and with what's going on today, I cannot deal with this today, I'll talk to you about it tomorrow, then it was really my responsibility to come back and say, okay, let's talk about this. Now, sometimes he would have to kind of go, are we going to talk about this? Because I was still in my run mode. And then I'd take a deep breath and go, yes, okay, we'll talk about this. So it really depends on the intensity of it as to the timing of it. But I think the important thing is that you both, whether you're the one who's running or you're the one who's chasing, you both have to agree, we will resolve this. It's an agreement that now we make that says we're not going to leave this unresolved. It may not happen in the timing the same all of the time, but it's going to get resolved. And so that's something I'm committed to, that's something he's committed to, but how we navigate that each time might look differently, and the time frame might look differently.
So let me say something about when you do come back and you have that resolution conversation. It's not a rehashing conversation. And sometimes that's where we would go until we learned how to do that, the tools of that. It wasn't rehashing and then starting the argument back over. And a lot of times that's one of the reasons why she had a difficult time re-engaging with me, because it was bringing up the same argument until we learned that it was about understanding and not winning.
Yeah, that's been ringing in my ears since you said that. We're not going to come back to it to determine who's right or wrong.
Right.
We're going to come back to it so that we can grow closer to
That's right.
each other, understand each other better.
Right.
And that's how you know you've done conflict well, is after you've resolved it, you feel closer to your mate, your spouse. If we have resolved it the way that we both feel heard, it should feel like I'm drawing into you. This feels good. This feels close to you. That's what we're looking for.
And I guess that's not to say that sometimes we don't have to apologize, right? Sometimes we
Absolutely.
don't have to admit,
Of course.
I'm sorry, right?
Yeah.
But at the
Yeah,
end
and
of the day, it's not to cast stones.
That's right. That's right.
When the other spouse, I guess, has to do that. Yeah, you were
Right. Right.
wrong.
And then there's, so we talk about this in couples counseling a lot, is like, this is not a you problem versus a me problem. This is a we problem. This is our issue, not your issue versus my issue.
Yeah, that was one thing that our counselor tried to work hard on us to understand, is this isn't about you or you. This is us. You know, no matter what has happened here, no matter what's brought us to this place, we own this. We work at this. And yeah, in part of that, some of that is you got to work on some of you, and you got to work on some of you, but we are going to own this process together. It goes back to that, I am not against you, I am for you, I am for us. And that has to be the basis of everything, is that I'm not against you, I'm not against us. This is hard, this is difficult. We will work through this, but we're going to do it with the knowledge that I'm not trying to hurt you, or I'm not trying to cause you problems. I want to resolve this.
So good. Thank you for going down those rabbit trails with me.
You're welcome.
Let's get into what you got. We talked about conflict last week. What do you want to hammer into our hearts this week?
We wanted to talk about how to stay, and they call it the energized cycle in the book called Love and Respect. And it's a cycle you get on where you feel connected to your spouse, and they talk about how do you ride that wave when things are good. And I do that with couples all the time, is they'll come in and go, oh man, it's been a great week and no issues, and it's just been a really great week. And I'll say, that's awesome. How do you ride that wave? How do you catch that wave and ride that in, you know? And so we talk about that, as how to do that. So it's noticing the little things. It's speaking into the little things. And I'll give you an example of that. Someone says at one time is, why does Shara tell you, thank you for driving? You know, I drive a lot of the times on trips and stuff like that, and she'll go, you know, thank you for driving all this way. I really appreciate it. And it's noticing those things and speaking to the small stuff. I mean, obviously everybody, or most people, speak to the big stuff. Oh, thank you for the gift. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for working so hard. But it's noticing the smaller things that feed the big stuff. The little things that you appreciate. It's not like the me placating to her and just going, oh, thank you for cooking, thank you for this, thank you for that, thank you for this. You know, it is an appreciation of my spouse versus assuming of my spouse. Well, she'll do it. I'm assuming dinner's going to be, you know, ready when I get home. It's that assumption that leads to resentment. But if I can appreciate it, and I can notice it, or I can give her, say I go by the store and get her a flower, a just because flower, not a Valentine's flower or something like that, but a just because. Hey, I saw this and I thought of you. And her love language is not gift giving, but in those moments, it is an appreciation that I see you. And so it is riding, that's how you ride the wave of that, is that you try to pour into that energy, so therefore it builds the atmosphere, it builds the connection.
So I would like to tie that into conflict a little bit there, And so for a lot of you, it's like, okay, well, how do we get to the place where we're actually going to work on this? We can get to the energizing side. Using that right there is one of the things that, because we tend to focus just on what's going wrong. We need to also, maybe in the midst of, I'm frustrated because my spouse doesn't really want to work on this or isn't agreeing to work on this. So maybe if I just start speaking to the things that are going well or going right, or that my spouse is doing well or doing right, or just noticing or appreciating, you might start seeing a change in things. So now they're getting wins. So a lot of the times what we'll hear from one of the spouses is that I can't ever do anything right.
They're always criticizing me.
Everything I do is wrong. Okay, well, that's red flag. If that's what my spouse is telling me, then I need to be paying attention to the wins, what they're doing right, what they're doing well, what they're doing good, and speak to that. And the more I speak to that, it starts to draw that heart then towards me. And now I'm more open to hearing you. I'm more open to addressing these issues because I'm feeling some wins here. I'm feeling like I'm not the enemy all of the time. I'm feeling like you appreciate me.
Yeah, it's like that feeling of never being able to be good enough. And a lot of maybe have history or trauma of, from our dads or moms or whoever, that we never felt good enough. So therefore, my spouse, wife or husband, that criticism feels like, I'm never going to get it, so why try? I'm never going to be good enough, so why even try? And so therefore, if you can speak, like she said, to the things they are doing well, it feeds that.
I saw this when I was a youth pastor. I saw this a lot, that parents are really good at pointing out the bad things their kid does. You've got a C or D, or you got, whatever, but they're not really good at pointing out the good things. We tend to get the most emotional when our kids do wrong, when it should be the opposite. We should get the most emotional when our kids do right and celebrate that and put just as much energy. And I think I'm hearing you kind of say that in the same way in our marriage. We're really good at knowing what we're against, and we're really good at nitpicking the bad things, but not so good at riding that wave by let's appreciate and celebrate the daily good that each other is doing.
I'll give you a great illustration of that. Is that so say you're driving on the road and you're doing 65 and you see a police officer that's in the hiding in the corner. What's our automatic reaction? Hit the brake, right? Why? I'm doing the speed limit. I'm not, because automatically I'm assuming they're going to be getting me, right? If that's my assumption, hey, honey, we need to talk, what'd I do? Honey, can we talk? Oh my gosh, here it comes. As opposed to me assuming, hey, honey, can we talk? What'd I do well? Her saying, gosh, I appreciate X, Y, and Z. I'm automatically assuming the worst if you're in that negative cycle. What if you're in the energizing cycle? I'm going to automatically assume the best.
But I think you're right. I think these things that we're talking about, a lot of these things we're discussing actually does apply to children too. So a lot of these things that you're practicing between you and your spouse, we actually can be practicing with our kids.
That's right.
I know that's a part of marriage and that's a part of family, is learning how to, we're in authority over these children, but at the same time, they still are equal in importance and value, and they deserve to be spoken to with just as much as respect as I expect him to speak to me. And so I can use these same principles with my kids that I'm using with him or with each other. So it's applicable, across the board. It's just a different relationship, and were we perfect parents? No, absolutely not. And did we a lot of times pay more attention to what they did wrong than they did right? Absolutely. Now, as we worked on us, did that get better? Sierra says yes, it did. It got better. Perfect? No. Better? Yes. What we learned is that when this is good, then we had more grace and more just You know, it was better there because this was good. We were able to give them better. We were able to see them better because I'm seeing him better and he's seeing me better. It's amazing how this works. Perfect? No, get that out of your vocabulary. It's real. It's always real. But we work to resolve it even with our children.
So I want to, was going to begin on this, but let me end, or I'm not saying let's conclude, but I'm just, the one thing that a lot of my clients struggle with when they come into the office is it's the assumption that I'm there to fix them, that they are here to be fixed.
They come in defensive almost.
Yes, very. Because it's the assumption that the mental health environment, my office, is for somebody who doesn't have it all together, is a failure, as messed up. You know, it's the automatic assumption. And when they come in here, matter of fact, I got a card one time that says after they graduated or after they finished, you know, they said, "Thank you for not fixing me. Thank you for just hearing me." And that's my goal for someone that when they sit on my couch, I want us to have a relationship where I am teaching them how to use a hammer. It's imparting tools and how to do life or how to do things in a different way than you learned. And you know, and that's not just guy or girl. That is child. That is teenager. It's just across the board. It is, when you're sitting in a counseling office, it is not a stigma. Problem is we've got this in our culture, a stigma that the counseling office is just for people who don't know what they're doing, or they've messed up, or they've got some sort of mental disorder and that kind of stuff. And it is not that. It is a place where you're developing a relationship with someone who maybe has been through life and experienced life in a, like us, that's what we put on our Psychology Today, our bio, is that we have experienced crisis in our life and we have learned to navigate that, and we want to impart that into someone else's life and how to do that. So I just want to throw that out there, is like, if you're coming to counseling, it's not because you are a failure, you've messed up or anything. It is learning how to navigate life, relationships in a different way than you have.
And taking that into marriage, that's where I think it's important that we try to get to a new mindset, is that we're not trying to fix one another. We're here to let one another be real and be human and hear one another, understand one another. I just want to be close to you. I don't want there to be anything that's in between us, and I don't want to resent you. That's the bottom line. I'm not here to fix you. And so maybe if you're feeling like you're trying to be fixed, maybe that's an indication that they're just craving to be close to you, or they want these things resolved so they can be close to you. So it's helping you to look at it a little differently.
What would you tell a spouse, because I've heard this before, where a spouse, they want me to go to counseling because they just want someone to take their side and tell me what I'm doing wrong. Mm-hmm. I mean, I hear what you're saying, that
Right.
That's not what that's for. What would you tell that person that's feeling that way? He or she just wants me to go to counseling so someone can take their side and tell me what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah, I would invite them into a conversation of, first of all, why they're feeling that way, what's happening, you know, are they criticizing you, or what's happening to kind of make you automatically assume that. And then I would talk to them just about if your relationship could be better, what would you want to be better? What, you know, if you could think about your perspective of it, what would you want to be better? Well, I'd want to be closer to my spouse. I'd want to be do things more often. I think, you know, it goes back to the thing that helped us solidify some things for us. I wanted her to be my friend. I didn't want her just to be my lover, my spouse. I wanted someone that I could hang out with and be my best friend. You know, recreational companionship was huge. That's big on my list. And so we found ways to be adventurous together. And so that's why I would say what if you could hang out with your spouse and it just be a great relationship? And so how do you learn how to do that?
And I would also add to that I'm just going to say in probably over 90% of the cases of the reasons why couples come to therapy, both of you have some things you have to work on. It may be one of you that's barking and screaming the loudest, but I'm guaranteeing you that person has some things they need to work on too. So that is part of our job, is to realize that, not to single one person out, but to also help you realize that this is a joint effort here, and there's probably some other things, the other person needs to work on as well. I just assume that I've got a part of the piece of the pie here. Here's this issue, and there's a part I play. And what part is it? And that's our job, is to figure out, help you figure out which piece of the pie you own, and because you both are going to own some of it, and then we non-judgmentally help you work through that.
Yeah, you're not there to pick a side.
No,
Right,
we're not
no.
there to pick a side, absolutely. Because again, we go back to the whole, this is a we problem. This is our problem, not yours.
So good. Energizing cycle. Have we finished that thought?
Well, there is one more related to the energizing cycle. So just because you're on the energizing cycle does not mean you won't have disagreement. So that's where I guess wanted to kind of, a lot of times couples will come in and go, well, I guess we're back to ground zero because we had an argument and we were really doing good, and the wave crashed, right? And so I talk about, so what did you guys do when you had the argument? Well, we didn't stay mad as long. Oh, good. It's one of those things of like, so you learn something. You learn how to re-engage and not set on it, for days. You learn how to re-engage. And so we got back on the energizing cycle. I said, when people are out there in the surfing world, when they crash, they're looking for the next wave. So that's in the energizing cycle, that's what you're doing, is you're looking for the next wave. You're looking for, how do I pour back into her? How do I not stay bitter or resentful? How do I go back into, as opposed to saying, well, I guess I got to learn how to surf again, or what I'm saying, or how to do marriage again. I guess I don't know how to do it. It's not that. It's actually you're learning along the way things not to do, things to do differently. Experience is a great teacher. So now I'm done with that.
Okay.
Now I'm done with that.
I want to go back to something you said. This was a couple points ago, but you were talking about an individual, and you mentioned that he kind of graduated out. Is there an end goal to marriage counseling? Is there we've reached a place of understanding, now we graduate? Should there be an end goal, or is this something we should commit to long term? How do we figure that out?
I think when we realized, and for us it was when we realized this couple has it. They're not perfect, but they're using their tools, they're having conflict, they're resolving it, they're staying connected, they're on and off the energizing cycle, but they're doing it. Then that's when we know, guys, go with it, and we wish you all the best, and there's nothing more because you're using your tools, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. That's normal. So when we got to, our counselor looked at us and we were talking about that, and I was like, well, yeah, we're having some arguments, but we're resolving it, and we're having more better days than bad days, and he goes, well, welcome to normal. He goes, that's what normal is. And we're like, oh, okay, good. and so, yeah.
Did you say you don't need me anymore?
Yeah, that's exactly what he said.
Or we'll say, hey, let's check in a month, or let's check in 2 months, and let's just make sure you guys are still,
still doing well, yeah.
You pull your training wheels off, and you got this, and that's a good feeling. To be able to get, but it's also getting to that place, I think, where couples look at one another and they say, you know what, because of what we have come through and because of what we have worked through, I love you more today than today I married you. I love the man or the woman you are today more than I have ever loved you. And to be able to look at your spouse and say that, wow.
Well, and that's where I would say, I celebrate the crisis we went through because it gave us the marriage we wanted. I don't celebrate the crisis. I hate that it took that to get us here. But I celebrate that. I look back and go, wow, if it took us that to get us here, I'll do that again. I mean, I don't want to do that again, but I'm just, I don't want to do the crisis again. But I definitely want to, it rewarded us the marriage that we always wanted, which is the connected relationship.
That's why we've got to stop looking at conflict so negatively, because it is really meant and designed, I believe God uses it to actually teach us and to hopefully draw us closer to one another, and we learn and we grow. It's no different than my personal walk with the Lord. You know, as I stumble, as I crash, as I fall, I learn, right? I get up, I go again, and I hopefully grow closer to the Lord as a result and better that relationship. It's the same with us. Every crisis, conflict, or whatever has taught us something, and it really draws us closer together. And we appreciate one another more, love each other more, and then you get 31 years in, 40 years in, 50 years in, and wow. What the richness of that, guys. This is why you don't bail so quickly, because if you bail quickly, you miss out on the richness of 30, 40 years down the road, and you look at each other. I remember one time we had an exercise we did with the couples. I'm touching your face because it's what we were kind of looking. We're asking them to look at each other in the eyes for a minute or two. Don't look anywhere else. Just look each other in the eyes. And he and I did it too, while the rest of them were doing it. But I noticed that with every line of his face, every crease, I could see a memory. I can remember stuff. And it's like I could look at his face and see the journey of us. And that is a gift of God, y'all. And that is what God does. And that's what we want for you. It's what we want for couples, is that they stay with the journey. The journey's tough. The journey's hard. Yeah, but the journey's worth it. Parenting, the journey is tough. The journey is hard, but the journey's worth it. And I think that's what he's telling us. In this world you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer, because I have overcome the world. He's saying, yeah, it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough, but it's worth it, because I have something really great for you down the road. I've got something, you're going to look back on all of this and you're going to go, wow, isn't God good?
So can I, just to speak to that, sorry.
Sorry.
So one of the things I remember in a conference we had one time, and I said in the middle of, as we were talking, I just began to cry, which is not hard for me, but I said, I almost forfeited the journey that we could have for the crisis. I almost forfeited it. And this is not an isolated incident, and this is where I want to, I guess, encourage you, exhort you, because a lot of times people come into our office and go, well, there's no way we could have that. Our journey's too far. We've come too far in hurting each other and criticizing one another. And I don't know where you guys are at as a couple or as a family. And you think, gosh, we've come too far. There's just no way I can restore this. This is not an isolated incident. We have seen over and over and over couples come in and really severe crises, and there's restoration, and there's reconciliation, and there's beauty for ashes. There is joy, and we'll have over and over again. We never thought we could get here again. I never thought I could look at my wife and fall in love with her again. That's where we were at. I never thought I could fall in love with her again. It happens. Because this is what God designed. And when you got God fighting with you and helping you and empowering you, He's gonna gift you with that. He's gonna pour into you and pour into her that connection. And you'll feel that again. You'll be surprised. One day we were in counseling and I looked at her and it was one of those moments of like, I saw her as that bride when she's walking down the aisle. Sorry. My heart was no longer bricked up. My heart was no longer callous. It's like He had softened my heart toward her and her toward me. And we saw us as that couple just beginning again. Anyway, I just wanted to exhort that.
I really feel like we've had a breakthrough here, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're expecting your invoice.
I know, right?
I was joking around this week with earlier, we were talking about this series, and they were saying how much they enjoyed it, and series, not Siri.
What can I help you with?
And they were kind of gloating a little bit about their marriage and how healthy it was, and but he was saying, I hope that people know that even as they get older, they can still experience such great intimacy with their spouse.
Absolutely.
And intimacy is much more than just a physical intimacy. And he was telling me,
Into me, you see.
obviously, they have a healthy marriage, and I'm not going to make eye contact with anybody in this room right now. I don't want to give it away while I'm talking. But the conversation was really there can be such great relationship, even in older years, such
right.
specialness.
Absolutely.
That's kind of what I'm hearing you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, empty nest for us, I mean, it was just the mourning of them leaving. We mourned them leaving. But what was happening here wasn't an issue. Because we had been working on it. We had been doing what we were supposed to do, so we didn't have a problem with filling our time or knowing, or connecting or realizing that. Hush, Tracy. But that's what emptiness was for us. It was just a mourning of that part of our lives being over. But then a lot of times couples will look at each other and go, now what do we do? Who are you? I don't know who you are. And if that's the case, it's because you haven't been working on it up until then. But if you're doing some of the things that we're talking about in these sessions and working on it, then when you get to that place, you're not going to look at the other person and go, I don't know who you are. You're going to know them. And it's not going to be as critical. I'm not saying it's not going to be hard, but it's not going to be as crisis-oriented as a lot of couples are when they get to that place.
Does anyone have any questions? It is 12:15. Thank you for being so attentive. I hope you enjoyed this. But does anyone have any questions? I know this is super uncomfortable. Nobody wants to like, I have this issue. All right.
By the way, just we do have cards with us if you are interested in individual counseling or couples counseling. You don't necessarily have to just be a couple in struggling. Maybe there's things going on individually. I did want to, and maybe this is a commercial. I'm not trying to sell anything, but I do want to let you know one of the things, and this is a long-time study of trauma and grief, that unprocessed trauma and or grief will lead to anxiety or depression. And that's kind of one of those psychological studies that they've done, for years, and come to the conclusion that most people go through depression because of those issues. Obviously, there's some that are chemical imbalances as well, and we're not talking about that, but there are definitely those things that, so I say that to say, individually, if you are struggling with depression or anxiety, I would encourage you to go see someone to kind of help you navigate, walk through that, find some healing in the midst of that. And both Sharon and I do trauma therapy, and we can talk more about that individually if you'd like. We are located in Statesville, just to kind of let you know, and we also do Zoom, as well. So just to kind of give you the 411.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys do marital counseling, individual counseling. And I would just add on to that, I believe in spiritual deliverance. I believe in
We do as well.
The power of Scripture to deliver you from depression, to deliver you from anxiety, to deliver you from all that. But I also believe in godly wisdom and knowledge, and God has given that to counselors, faith-based counselors. And there is nothing wrong with believing in the power of prayer, while also going to talk and surrounding an issue on all sides, right? Get some applause.
Right, amen.
For me, it's no different than if I were to get cancer, God forbid. I want all the prayers, but I'm going to the doctor.
Right.
Right? I want all of it. I just believe that the Lord. I'm not gonna push the Lord into a corner and say you only work this way.
Right.
Right.
I believe God has given these people spiritual gifts to help you, to help us. So don't be afraid to ask for that.
Yeah, and I just don't think he wants us to be alone in working through it. And so I think we kind of see counseling as we're just that added layer of I'm with you, I'm here with you, you're not alone in this, and we'll work through this together. And anything that we do, we believe is biblically based and supported. Any kind of concept we can support through the Word of God.
All right. It's
Time to go.
time to go.
Thank you for having us.
Hey, can we just show Tracy and Sharon how much we
Thank you.
stand,
Oh,
standing
no.
up,
It's been a joy. Thank you
We
so
loved
much.
it.
I
Thank
want
you.
right now, again, we talked about the power of prayer. Can we just all come down here?